Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and today it's spaghetti and meatballs on the menu as we make our 9th facade, an Italian restaurant. Now I have enjoyed doing this run of facade buildings all along that back wall of the Lego room. They add a lot of depth to the city and give the impression that it goes on beyond the boundaries of just the literal buildings you can see. So I'm very fond of that effect, as you probably know. Now it won't be the last facade we'll ever do because there are 3 other walls of the Lego room, some of which have got full-size buildings against them, and more will, and one of them will have the fairground against it, but there probably will be a few more facades in the future. I may also reorder the ones I've already got, but for now I'm just going to fill the space that remains, and that's one that's in between the Vestas wind turbine and the last facade we did, which was the girls' school. So I think the first thing to do is look at the space that we've got available for this build. So this is the space we've got, just behind Robin there against the wall, next to the school. And this will actually be our 9th facade. I'm not counting the castle or at Sweat, the gym in those, though you could argue they're facades as well. We've got 1, 2, not really counting the station either. 3 being the most hidden one of all, the construction site of the elementary school. 4, 5, big tall black one. 6, 7 with the wonderful scene of the man on the ledge. 8, the girls' school, and then 9, this one. So this is the space we've got to build. It's not quite as narrow as some of the places we've had to fit them, in that it's 8 studs until the beginning of the track on the right hand side there, and then we've got a lot more depth on the other side. But the train that is the cargo train on the outside track does still go over the edges of that track when it goes around the corner, some of the larger carriages and so on. So we will have to accommodate them going past. But, you know, it is a lot more depth than I've had to deal with in other places. Now, another obstacle is this great big Vestas wind turbine. So although in real life you wouldn't have any buildings anywhere near this sort of thing, because it would be very blowy and quite dangerous, I'm going to have things built right up because I can't have an empty space in the Lego room. But it is probably sensible that I don't have it really tall. So probably I'm limited to the height of, say, that sort of side roof of the school as a rough sort of bar, I think, to be under. And then it definitely wouldn't get hit by the wind turbine, which in real life would be able to rotate 360 degrees on its base and sort of point into the wind. So, yeah, there we are. Now this one I think I'm going to have to build directly onto the base plates once I've designed it, just because of its odd shape. But we'll see that in due course. So yeah, back to the building desk. So back at the building desk, I think we better have a look at the base set that I'm going to be modding to make my MOC today. And that is, excuse me boys, this friend set, which is set 41379, the Heart Lake City Restaurant. And I really like this set for a number of reasons. It's got wonderful bright colours, for one. That's quite a different palette, as usual Friends sets are from normal City Lego. But in this case, it's not particularly offensive. And we do have my least favourite colour in this sort of lavender for the plates and crockery. But if we ignore that and the purple tablecloths, which I don't mind so much, we've got some really bright colours on these roofs for the tiles, and we've got some great colours for plants and the vines with the grapes on, and this wonderful sign as well. So yeah, I thought this was a great idea for the basis of a build in Brick Nottingham. I also really like this pale yellow colour as well, which I was very prepared to not like, but seeing it in real life, it is much better than in the pictures. And combined with this medium nougat and this sort of white intervening stripe, I really like it now. So I'm very happy to have this set once it's been stripped of all the mini dolls and other disgusting colours. It will be very serviceable indeed. Now, a quick word on the sign, which is fantastic in that it is 3D. We've got this bunch of grapes and a couple of sort of leaves, but we've also got this wonderful picture of spaghetti and meatballs, which must be the speciality of the restaurant. So it's called La Locanda, which I've probably ruined in my best Italian accent. And literally that means an inn, though apparently it's become very fashionable in recent years, and it kind of means a posh eatery as well. So I think that's probably what this place is, a very sort of high-end restaurant as opposed to an inn, because there's absolutely no sign of any accommodation after all. So what is the brief for our build? Well, first of all, it's to get it a lot narrower, because as you can see from this, if our maximum sort of width was 8 or less, preferably near the railway line, then this is clearly far, far, far too deep. So we're going to have to lose all the outside areas and probably these steps as well, definitely this plant and so on. The width is probably all right. But if we're going to lose the steps, we may have to lose this arch here. I do want to keep this balcony because I think that's one of the best features, this balcony with these lovely vines on top. And it's great with the grapes and they match with the sign and so on. I do want to keep some of this colourful roof. Definitely this corner bit is my favourite, and I do like it combined with this diagonal angle at the bottom. This bit's a bit isolated, so I may keep that, but it's not 100% certain. Now, the other main change, apart from having to lose some of this stuff, is that this clearly wouldn't be the front of a building, as it currently is, with the front door here and sort of customer access perhaps here as well in my city, because there's a great big stonking double rail line here and not far from a tram line either. So the main difference aesthetically for me is that this is going to be the back of the building. Now that's absolutely fine. We can still have the veranda out the back, but I think this would therefore be the back door with perhaps the bins outside. And if this is still a door, that would be sort of staff access only. And the fact that we'd have a very posh restaurant, very high end, with all of its tables on the balcony right next to a double rail line, well, yes, that is a fair criticism, but if we're going to want to do this and to put it there, then that's something we're going to have to tolerate. But pretty much everywhere in my city is quite near a rail line, so you can't really avoid the noise. So that is the brief we're going to do. And do stay tuned right to the end of this video, because at the end of the video, I will be going into Lego Digital Designer and showing you the process by which I made my design and all the steps I took in doing so. And for those who are interested, I know a lot of you are, you can sort of see how I go about changing a set like this into what we're going to end up with today. Now I'm going to be using this base plate just to represent the green base plate that's in the Lego room for building our facade on. So I'm only going to be using sort of the last 8 or so studs along the back. And the reason why I'm going to be building it directly onto a base plate rather than onto a plate layer, as I often do, is because this has quite a lot of angles and different sort of bits in it. And it's also got this diagonal edge and these sort of paving slabs here. So I think that'll be quite complicated to do on plates, to have a plate layer to then push down onto my base plates. So I'm just going to build it on here and then transfer it bit by bit into its position. So that will be pretty painful, but I think it'll look better as a result of that process. So the first step I think I'm going to do, because I'm going to keep pretty much all of this side unchanged with the door and the roof and the sign and so on, is to transfer that onto my base plate here, leaving behind these lime plates and so on, and leaving behind the rest of the building for now, so I can decide what I want to keep and what I want to change. So I'm going to do that. Right, so there's the corner built, and it's using the full sort of 8 depth that I'm allowing myself for this left-hand side of the building. The right side will have that normal curve back, so it's only 6 deep, and I'm thinking that will give us enough clearance on the trains. And one of the things I've tried to do in this build is use absolutely as many pieces as possible from the original set. So I need to buy fewer pieces, but B, so they don't go to waste. So a lot of places where it's not going to be seen because it's going to be against the wall, for example, I can put several 1x1 bricks in a row and not really have a problem with that, just because, you know, it really doesn't matter. I've also got, you know, one stud showing here that I wouldn't have if it was a viewable side of the building. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. And some of the details I'm taking off, like this lovely lantern, I'll be able to use elsewhere, so it's no great loss. Right, so there's that corner back. Now, it may look very similar or even identical to you, but it has had quite a lot of structural changes in there, just with the design, just so I can have this bit, which was part of the base for the whole thing, part of the ground floor, with the not reception desk, but whatever that is, with the bell on and so on. And that would therefore fit now as a bit of the floor above. And I'm going to do that by adding a couple of 1x6 plates, just to sort of incorporate that into the wall of the existing build. And that's creating kind of a pleasing overlap between the original sort of corner roof bit and the veranda bit that wasn't there before. So yeah, quite like that. Probably doesn't make a lot of sense yet, but yeah, I think that'll work well. Now, the original had 2 of these arches on this part, with the lovely open pizza oven under the second one, and I do want to keep that. And even though you can sort of see through it, I thought maybe it's sort of ventilated with the outside or something like that. So even though it's the back of the building and it would normally be quite a feature maybe at the front, I'm still going to have it. But I'm going to go for 3 arches and have it on the third one. And the reason I can do that is because I'm not going to have an arch on the bit that was sort of up here. So I've liberated another arch. So I'm going to do roughly that for the next bit. I'll have to take all these tiles and things off this bit as well before building it in. Then I can think about doing a sort of functional insides as well. Right, so that's that step. Let's keep going. Right, so you can see now I'm going to have the entire top of this side being flat for a nice long balcony with much more seating on, because we're not going to have the seating out the back. So I need to have much more than one table on the top. And this level now can be finished off. It's just the original top bit unchanged, except I haven't used the sticker that was adorning the back of that. That's sort of graffiti one, because no one will be able to see it. So I'll be able to use that elsewhere if I don't use it here. I also haven't used the toilet door because we won't be having a toilet. And also it's kind of got mini doll pictures on anyway, so I don't really want that in my city either. So that's going to go there. I won't push it down firmly yet. Pizza oven can therefore go in this space here with the last arch. So we've actually got now an enclosed building. A few things then for the back. The menu was on the outside and it was kind of overlooking the outdoor seating area and so on. And we don't have that now, but it is a nice piece. It is kind of specific to this restaurant in that it's sort of the same font as the sign up here and so on. So I do think I want to use it. And maybe it's just advertising to passers-by. You can see this area from the park and definitely from the train lines and so on. Yeah, so anyway, I've decided to use it on the outside, even though it won't be directly visible to guests who are eating. Then just to decorate the outside, I thought I'd add a couple of bins. Now these will be against a sort of a green base plate in due course, but I think they sort of exaggerate the fact that this is definitely a back door, because you wouldn't have those outside the front of a restaurant, so I can have those prominently positioned like that. And then I do have these two open windows to contend with. So what I've done is got two of these kind of old fence pieces to fill in the gaps. And I think that's quite useful because it kind of looks like I think Italian restaurants often do with this sort of lattice work around the sides. It is that sort of Mediterranean look that we are going for with this restaurant. Because originally, of course, there were only two arches. One had the pizza oven in and one was a doorway. So we didn't have anything to replicate here. But I think that keeps it sort of open looking and breezy. Probably a bit too cold for the UK in reality, but nonetheless, let's go with that. Right, so I need a new 6x6 plate to go here. But then we can start to focus on the inside. Now I've got a couple of there and there plates showing, but I don't mind because you're definitely not going to be able to see those. And for the inside, we did have this sort of desk, sort of booking desk, I suppose, with a little bell on it and a menu. And I do like that, but I don't think you're going to be able to see it from the outside. So I'm probably going to save that for another restaurant build. So I'll put that to one side. Then there was also this as part of the set, which was a great big salad bar with a bowl for salad, some little strawberry, what would they be, cakes, tarts, something like that, bowls and olive oil and vinegar and so on. So that looks really good. I really like that. Also, it's kind of purple, so it's going to be fitting with the tablecloth colour for this restaurant. So I don't think it will go very well elsewhere. That's my thinking anyway. So I thought I would push that down there, and that could be what's up against those open windows. So the main floor of the restaurant would be here, sort of through the wall. And then at least there's something that we can see that's quite interesting looking through all of those gaps in the wall. Now, at this point, I could add the chef in here with his pizza oven and other things, but you're probably not going to be able to see that either. So I might have him either serving a dish on the outside or just saved a minifigure for something else. Maybe it could be put in the bins out, who knows. Good, so I'm going to push those down and then continue levelling this off for a nice large veranda slash balcony. Alright, so here's the next stage with the full veranda. I've reused all of those new white pieces with a sort of half arch to make this lovely continuous edging, which I like very much. Incidentally, while we're here, I have added this bench bit into the kitchen just as a bit more decor for there. It's just because it was available, really. You might be able to see it through one of the windows, but it's no great loss if I don't see it, because I'm not going to use those pieces urgently elsewhere. So it's pretty packed in there. Now I need to think about the cross pieces. So before we had this, which I like a lot. That's one of the best features of the set, but it's not going to be long enough now. These were 12 long bricks, and I've done this one so it can take some 16 long bricks instead. So we can do the same sort of thing, but on a bit of a bigger scale, still with only 4 columns holding the whole thing up. And with that in mind, I already bought more of the limb pieces, more of these, and most importantly, more of the hanging grapes, which I actually got a long time ago because I was planning this for a very long time. I got these in Brick Hall number 23. So yeah, did we just do 49? So yeah, a long time ago. Right, so I can sort of use them and that sort of stuff to finish off the top. And then I've got to think about tables and seating and so on. Now this is the sort of setup that was on the veranda before. I haven't moved it off this plate at all. And I do like most of it. I kind of like the cutlery with the napkins. I'm not entirely sure because of the use of this horrible medium lavender colour. So I might change that. I'm definitely going to get rid of the big plates. And then there's these chairs, which I do quite like, but you can't fit a minifigure on them. And I don't know, I might use them somewhere a bit more visible. I'm thinking of using normal chairs, probably in red, just because that will go with the roof colour and sort of bring out that accent there. Whereas this teal colour, though very nice, is just another random colour. It doesn't actually match anything else. And these tables are far too high, being mounted on these too tall window frame pieces. So I think I'm just going to use the 2x2 round bricks that make up these sort of pedestals with a flower on and mount it essentially on those just for a sort of more conventional table. But I will keep the purple cloth because that at least picks up the colour of the grapes. Right, let's do all that. Right, so here's my scene. I think I'm finished. First of all, I did add a lot more foliage pieces to the roof. So there's actually 6 on there now rather than the original 2. And I've got the grapes kind of going around the corner. So it looks a bit more realistic. And I've kept 2 back. I'm sure I could have added these, but I reckon I could do with some grapes in my supermarket when I get round to doing that. So I'm going to keep those to one side. But 6 bunch of grapes on 6 tree limb pieces, I think is quite a good covering. Then I've got my little scene, and we've got a waiter in his tie pouring from a bottle of wine, which is the one that comes with the Series 9 waiter, and it's just got that lovely bunch of grapes on the front. I couldn't resist doing that, given we were surrounded by grapes on the sign and on the vines themselves, so I really wanted to include that. Then I've got the chef up here rather than hidden away down there because I thought he might be bringing out some bread, so he's got a long loaf there. And then for the couple themselves, he's looking a bit grumpy, probably at the trains, to be honest, which will be whizzing by. And he's got the choice of champions, spaghetti and meatballs. That's what I'd go for. And his lady over here has gone for a lasagna, which is very simply done with a 1x1 red plate with a 1x1 tan tile on the top. I think that's brilliant simplicity on a white plate. And that's probably what Mrs. Hood would go for, to be honest. So they're a couple not unlike us in their choices. But there we are. There is the finished build. I've kept it down to 6 bricks with a little bit for this, and then 8 studs deep over here. So I think the trains will be all right going past that. It's not like the white train with the really pointed nose is going by on that outer track. And I do think the choice of the red chairs and the purple tablecloths is good because A, we've got rid of all that horrible medium lavender, but the purple matches the grapes and the red matches the roof. I've got that other roof left over, which is sort of sad from one respect, but you know, I'm sure I'll be able to use this somewhere else because it is a wonderful sort of combination of colours there for the tiled roof. Kind of reminds me of Florence when we visited there. And I'm definitely glad I changed the chairs, but I may use those elsewhere. So I'm going to keep this desk with menu for another restaurant in the future. And I'm also going to keep the large graffitied outdoor bin for another build as well, because we could put it out here, but it's just, I'm going to run out of space, and maybe I still will, but it seems a bit big for the location, but never say never. Right, so first of all, I'm going to show you the design process, and then we can put it in the Lego room. Right, so I said I would share with you the design process for the Italian restaurant, and this is essentially it. So we're in the program Lego Digital Designer, or LDD, and you can see, first of all, I've started off with a complete 3D rendition of the original set. And where I haven't got the pieces, or I can't be bothered to put them in, I haven't got a lantern or cutlery and so on, but it's essential that all the main parts are in. Also don't have the new leaf pieces and all sorts of other things. And then the very first process I do when doing something like this, which is essentially a remock, is take it apart, kind of deconstruct it, but keeping the sort of constituent elements all together. So it's essentially an empty shell, but with all those ingredients still available for future use. And I do this really because I want to keep as many of the parts from the original set, where possible, in the new one. So I don't need to buy lots and lots of new parts because I've designed it completely differently without any attention to what pieces I'd have bought. So with that in mind, the next stage is to deconstruct all of the floor and all of the plates at the bottom, which I knew I wouldn't be needing. And what I do is I take them off one by one and just put them in a nice orderly position at the back. And therefore, that's kind of like a menu of all the pieces that I know I've got available that I've already bought as part of this set that I could use in putting it all back together again. So I've got these parts that are the constituent sort of furniture and roof pieces and so on. Then I've got these parts available for use. Then I've put what was left onto some base plates and started playing around with the structure that we've now seen built, which was getting rid of these stairs. At this point, clearly I was trying to see if I'd keep the arch, but a smaller one. But obviously that would involve me needing light yellow arch pieces that I didn't have. And where I used the part from the back area, I would take it from there so it wouldn't be available anymore for use. And then I've started a similar pile outside the front. And these parts outside of the front are pieces that weren't included in the real set that I'd have to buy. So you can see that if I did this structure as it is here, I'd have all these pieces left over from the original set, and I'd have to introduce these pieces out the front. So when I'd have got to this stage, I'd have thought, well, some of these pieces are quite hard to get. Maybe I can do better using the pieces that are already included in the set. And I did that very well, as it actually turned out, because there were very few pieces that I needed to add. It was pretty much, in the end, only a couple of long white bricks and a few others, as we'll see later. So then as I've moved on one stage further, you can see I've introduced the teal chairs and the purple tables, and I've put this roof back on and so on. And this is almost where we actually got to in the build. And there's a few bricks left, quite a few plates left that I can use for other projects, lots of tiles left and so on. But a very small pile out the front of things I actually needed to add. Like I said, it was only really the two long white bricks, a couple of smaller bricks and plates, one 6x6 in tan, and these bins. And then when I refined it more, because I just thought there were too many colours involved, just a slight change of the red chairs and adding more foliage on the top, you can see that that pile increased a little bit more in that I'd need some plates for the tables, a bit more foliage, like I said, the chairs and those pieces we just looked at. So in short, there's a few versions along the way, starting with the original one, deconstruct, 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 and then reconstruct, 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 using as many of the pieces as we can that we've already got from the set, and involving as few as possible new ones. Right, back to the Lego room for installation. So back in the Lego room, here is the car of the day, and it's the Ferrari type looking car from 60007 High Speed Chase. And I picked this one, not because it's my favourite, just because it's got an Italian theme, obviously, given we're doing an Italian restaurant. So thought I'd put a bright red sports car on the roads of Brick Nottingham. So there we are. And then on to what we've done today. Here is the restaurant itself. And it's looking pretty good. Got the bins out the back door. Got the scene that we can see from the balcony. And I'm liking that very much. The grapes stand out against the white. Love that yellow, pale yellow wall and that bright red roof. And I think it continues the theme. I know all these facades do look kind of too much in a row, and it'd be great if they did have a lot more perspective, but every time I try and do something that suggests or hints at perspective, like I did with this red one, making it a bit narrower like it was further away, it just looks like a narrow building the same distance. So anyway, I think the height's right. I like the colour. I like the fact it's against green, which makes it really stand out as well. You may notice that I've actually changed what I thought earlier and what I said about mounting it directly to the base plates. It's just too fiddly. It's too far away. There's quite a lot to add with the salad bar and things like that on the inside. So I actually did make a layer of plates out of dark bluish grey and attached everything to that before putting it in position. And that'll definitely make it a lot easier if I decide to move it in the future. So there we go. So I think the only thing to do now is to really double check that the train can still get past, because that is fairly vital. Right, so here is the vital train check. Oh! Wow, golly, that's close. But it does fit without hitting anything, so I guess it's a pass. Should we look for one more pass? Yeah, looking good. No wonder that guy's looking quite annoyed at the noise of all that freight going by. Fantastic. One last thing worth mentioning is I didn't use the green large bin in the end, and that's mainly because it would be against a green backdrop and you'd barely be able to see it. So I think it's better this way, having the light grey and the dark grey as a good contrast. So with that facade in position, we now have pretty much an unbroken facade wall, well, from probably that gap there, which is quite small, from the castle, facade station, facade, tram stop, road going into distance, facade, brand new facade. So I'm really liking that. And then it even continues on with a few buildings in the harbour, all the way to our El Dorado fortress with the balloon above it there. And then this wall is actually bare. And I may one day do some facades along there, sort of in a warehouse style. That's why I got some of those wonderful sort of industrial looking door pieces in that recent haul. So no firm plans yet. But yeah, there is our restaurant with its nice scene. I think it's really bright and it really lightens up that area. It's maybe not the most sensible building for that area, but I like it and I wasn't going to put it anywhere else. So all good. So as always, thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe for more awesome LEGO videos. And next time on Robin Hood Bricks, well, we'll be back in the city for another Lego City update. See you then!